Good morning, CLC. I invite you now, in this moment, to just relax. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take a nice, deep, cleansing breath in, receiving all the love and light that surrounds you. And as you release the breath, give back to the universe all that no longer serves you. Allow anything you no longer need to just wash away from you at this moment, in this time. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take another nice, deep, cleansing breath in. And as you release this breath, allow your body to just relax in this moment. And allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own, for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose.
I choose.
I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept.
I accept.
Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release.
I release.
Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This could be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways, someone who may not be physically present in this room or on this planet anymore. I turn to that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
I'm grateful for the good in your life.
Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone who's physically present in this room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I am grateful for the good in your lives. And so this poem is one of a series of poems that I did. It's called Chak-Love. So I have a poem for every chakra. And so this is Chak-Love number 6, Transite. I see you. No, not the you that could stand to lose a few extra pounds here or shape up more there because your slightly too much has never, ever quite been enough. Not that you. And not the bow-legged, hunchback, stuttering you that has one lazy eye when it gets too late at night, that gets tripped up on 2 right feet and stumbles when you walk and talk. The one who burnt the bread when it was time to make the donuts. You know that you. That's not the you. The too short, too tall, too hairy, too bald, dark, pale, surface level you that the world sees, knows, judges, and yet doesn't quite understand. I see you. The you that lies dormant in the depths of the dark, that transcends all the skin beauty through the divine soul and guiding light. The just underneath the surface of it all, rainbow of colors that comprises the you that floats to the top through a glimmer in your iris and a shimmer in your smile. Your warm, tender embrace that makes everything worthwhile. In the midst of the quiet of the nights, that inside you, divine and true, a pulsating reflection, life to life, soul to soul, love to love, in all of its infinite possibilities of perfection that God has enthrust upon you, the work that never ends, the becoming. I see you.
Well, good morning, Creative Life. I have the privilege and honor of wrapping up the February series, which is applying the science of mind. Honestly, it's what we do most of the year, is apply the science of mind. Now, hopefully, since we've been practicing, because Jesse's been giving us homework, we've gotten really good at it, right? Or at least better, okay? So the title today, which I had wrong on my notes, I just want you to know that I had the title wrong, is Releasing the Good for Better. What does that mean? Well, I have 3 thoughts about that I'm going to share with you. First one being, if we're going to release the good for the better, let's talk about the trap of good enough. Okay? The trap of good enough. There's this monkey trap that they use in all the places where coconuts and monkeys go together. Okay? What they do is they harvest a coconut and they hollow it out. And they make a hole just big enough for a monkey to get his hand into the coconut. And then they fill it with something that the monkey really, really, really wants. But the hole is not big enough for the monkey to get his hand out of the coconut full of what he wants. Okay? You see where this could be a problem? So if our hands are full of whatever, we have no room to hold anything else. So we are trapping ourselves with too much stuff. And it's good. It's good. Because we even talk about being good enough. You know, we worry about that we're not good enough. But then there's this trap of good enough. We're not willing to let go of what we have for something unknown. Or, most of the time what it is we have what we think we want, but it may not be what we actually want. Most of the time, it's what we've been told we want. Anybody watch any commercials? I mean, there are ad executives that are paid big bucks to tell us what we want. But it may not be what we want. And yet, there's our hand full of it. So we don't have room for anything else. I often say you can't pour from an empty cup, but if your cup is so full, there's no room for anything new. So sometimes we have to pour a little bit out, or a lot out. We need to pour some out so there's room for the sugar. Right? What we think we want. Now, I have a quote for you. Yep, she's already moving. Don't worry, Dainill, there's only 2 that I'll do this to you. The other one's the Robert Frost poem. So, we must let go of the life we have planned so as to accept the one that is waiting for us. Okay? We have to let go of the life that we have to let go of the life we think we want to have the life we're actually already living. Because if we're so busy chasing those plans, then we're not paying attention to what's actually happening around us right now. And it may be good enough. But if we were willing to let go a little bit, something even more amazing may walk through that door. Or, there's the old Yiddish saying. And I saw this attributed to a whole bunch of other people, so I'm just going to go with the old Yiddish saying. We plan, God laughs. Okay? I've seen it attributed to John Lennon, and I'm quite sure he said it. We're really good at making plans. Are we good at carrying out the plans? Are we good at walking through those plans? Or are we constantly planning for failure? The reading that I had this morning was A Beloved Minister's Wisdom. It's like we talk about success, but we plan for failure. So again, we're going to run into the trap of good enough, because we're planning, we're constantly planning for. It's like the first thought when we make a plan is, what could go wrong? Okay. Now, I am not saying that we don't need to plan for that, but our first thought could be, what could go right? And that's one way to take that step out of that trap of good enough. And I already said this. We're afraid because we don't know what it could look like. What did I say? We accept what is good enough because we don't know what better could look like. How many times have we heard Reverend Jesse get up here and say, the problem with peace is we don't know what it looks like. We think it's boring. We don't know what it could look like. Okay, so here's the good news. We are worth so much more than good enough. But let's talk about what it could look like, or accepting the unknown. Okay? So we're moving on for the trap of good enough. We may come back to it, but we're going to talk about the fear of unknown. Because that will stop us in our tracks. That will wake us up in the middle of the night, because we don't know what it could look like. Now, I will remind you that is the point of treatment, to envision what it would look like, and yet not get too specific. So we draw this line in the sand, and then we step back and forth over it. All right, so what Jesse's been talking about lately is where our good comes from. Our good comes from the unseen. It comes from the unknown. Now, I don't know if y'all know this, but I get the emails, and the theme from CSL, for Centers for Spiritual Living, was divine discomfort. I can see why Jesse didn't want to do that, but divine discomfort. Well, that's a little bit of what the fear of the unknown can look like, divine discomfort. If we don't know what it's going to look like, are we willing to get up and go anyway? All right. Now here, I'm going to read you a poem by Robert Frost. Y'all know this poem. I'm sure everyone has heard this poem. I would like to tell you that I was going to memorize it. Yeah, there was never a chance of me memorizing it. All right. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as far, and having perhaps a better claim, because it was grassy and wanted a claim. Though as for that passing there, had worn them only really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now, when you hear that poem, what do you think? You can actually answer me if you want, or you can just think about it, right? It's taking a chance, right? Okay. Why that poem speaks to me is 100 years ago, when I was 18 years old. 100 years ago, when I was 18 years old, I applied to 3 colleges. At the time, I was living in a tiny little town in Georgia. And that tiny little town in Georgia had a little 2-year community college. That was not one of the schools I applied to. It was not. I applied to Auburn University, which was 90 miles away. I applied to Belmont Abbey, which was 450 miles away. And I also applied to a school that I don't remember the name of, a nice little school up in Kentucky. Now, that one was over 900 miles away. And yet, my family's from Kentucky. So while it was 900 miles from my home, it was pretty close to my family. I got accepted to all 3 of them. And now I have to make a decision. Which school am I going to go to? Which school am I going to go to? Now, Auburn, if you know, is a pretty prestigious, big university. And it's only 90 miles from home, right? So I'm tearing myself up with this decision. How do I make this decision? And I had a dream. And in that dream, I was standing in a wood. And it was really, really quiet. And it was a little snowy, and there were the 2 paths. And I'm looking at the 2 paths. And I'm looking at this path down here. And I realize that down that path right there, I can see an interstate. And I can see cars going by. And then I look down this path, and this path is quiet. And it's not dark, but it's twilight. So I can't see very far. And I don't see anything down that path. And I woke up that morning knowing which school I was going to go to. I chose to go to Belmont Abbey, 450 miles from home. So you know what that means, right? It means that I can't come home for the weekend. It means I can't call my mom and say, I need you to come, and have her be there in an hour or an hour and a half. It means that when things happened, I had to lean on the people that were there. And when I showed up, I did not know a single person, not even my roommate, because my roommate was not communicative. Because they tell you who your roommate is, and you're supposed to, okay, this was before email was a thing. I did say 100 years ago, right? We hadn't even had a conversation, really. It was like she knew I was bringing this, and she was going to bring that, and I didn't know anybody. I did not know a soul. Now, here's the irony. I graduated from Auburn University, right? I did end up going to Auburn University. When I chose to go to Belmont Abbey, I knew that I was going to be there for 3 years because Belmont Abbey had a 3-2 program. You spend 3 years at a small college, get your core out of the way, and then you go to a big college to finish your degree. I did not know a soul when I got there. But when I moved to Auburn, and here's the irony, my mom had moved to Montgomery, Alabama, which is literally 20 miles from Auburn University. I moved home. There was one person that came with me. The one person who made all of the difference in my life. I met my husband at Belmont Abbey. Had I not been willing to face the unknown, I would not have met the one person who has been there through all of the nonsense that I have dragged him through. And who still, to this day, occasionally looks at me and goes, what are you getting me into now? That is what being willing to be divinely uncomfortable. Being willing to accept the unknown. Being willing to know that it's going to be okay in the end, even if I have no idea what it's looking like right now. that is being willing to accept the unknown. Because I got a life partner. Would I be a minister now? No. I might be a mechanical engineer, desperately unhappy sitting behind a desk. Because when I got to Auburn to be that engineer and started looking around, and I realized these aren't my people. And when I came home and said, I think I'm going to change my major, he said, okay, we'll make it work. There's one other thing I want to remind you of before we walk away from accepting the unknown. I did use the word fear. I want to remind you that fear has a job, just like ego does. Okay? But it should never be in the driver's seat. If y'all don't know, I love Hallmark movies. I was watching a Hallmark movie, and it was, have y'all seen the aerial silks? So it was a movie about aerial silks, and they're up, and the girl who was learning to do the silks, a little bit afraid of heights. How did she get talked into doing aerial? I don't know. But so she's up there, and her partner says to her, do you know the move? Have you wrapped yourself correctly? And then one other question. If the answer is yes to all of those, fear has done its job. Okay? Fear has done its job. You are going to be safe. Fear has a job. It is not something to be afraid of. I know, that's kind of ironic, right? Okay? It has a job. But then you got to ask yourself those questions. Do I know the lyrics? Have I practiced? It's going to be okay. And then you say, thank you to fear, and let it go. And in Science of Mind, we're big believers in saying thank you and letting it go, right? I also want to remind you, just watch the trend of your thoughts. Okay? I like to say weed your garden. It's not the first weed that's the problem. It's not the second weed that's the problem. It's the 20th weed that's the problem. So if you keep finding fear cropping up when it comes to the unknown, you're going to love this one. You get to be the bouncer at the gate of your thoughts. You get to be the bouncer. When those fear thoughts come at you, you get to look at them and go, nope, back of the line. Back of the line. Watch the trend of your thoughts. And if you find yourself with too many weeds in your thought garden, let me remind you, we have practitioners. We have ministers. You have people that love you. And I'm not above therapists. I've been in therapy several times. It's very helpful, especially when fear is trying to run the show. All right, last one. Leave the door open. Leave the door open. So we talk about treating and moving your feet, right? Okay. But when you treat, then you got to move your feet. You're good, or in this case, you're better, is not going to come find you on your couch. If you treat for guidance, you want to go and put yourself in places where the guidance can come to you. Now, in this case, it could be on your couch. Because you may treat for guidance, and then you're sitting there watching some show, and somebody gets on and says exactly what you need to hear. And you're like, oh, yeah. But maybe you need somebody to partner with whatever it is your better is looking for. And you got to get out and meet people and talk to people and have conversations with people. You got to leave the door open for that guidance to come in. And I also want to remind you about this or something better when we're treating. That's another way that we leave the door open. So we can treat for whatever it is that we want. And then we could say this or something better. We're leaving the door open for Spirit to surprise us. The Spirit has The divine has infinite ways of bringing our good and our better to us. The main culprit in limiting that is looking you in the mirror. We limit our own good. Sometimes by saying, this is good enough. Sometimes by letting fear run us. This or something better is a fantastic way to end a treatment. Now, I'll make sure that I've covered everything that I thought I wanted to say. Oh, you know what? I did leave out a really interesting part when I was talking about the trap of good enough. So I told you I'd come back to it. Do you know what the difference between a meal and a feast is? Besides definition? When you think of a feast, you think of multiple courses. You think of more food than you could possibly eat. I'm going to remind you, in your life, you have been invited to a feast. And yet, frequently, we insist on treating it like a meal. We only take enough. You are worth more than enough. You are a beloved expression of the divine. Your life is a feast. Treat it as such. And now, just because I was taught 3 steps, let's review them, right? I have the trap of good enough. I have accept the unknown. I have leaving the door open. Does that spell anything? It does. So I'm going to give you a bonus point. Because if we're going to use the word tall, we need one more L, right? What's our bonus point? Listening. Listening to your heart, listening to your mind, listening to the divine love. When we treat, we're talking to God. When we meditate, we're listening. So I am going to invite you to stand tall in your life. Now, one other thing that we were taught in homiletics, which is the speaking class, is to give you an action step. So I'm going to give you homework, right? But it's easy homework. I want you to bless your good. Bless it and let it go. And your good may stay right there. Or it may move over for the better. But until you're willing to let go, you'll never know. So, who are we? Beloved expressions of the divine. Let us stand tall, walk out with our heads held high, and remember that life is a feast, and it is all good.
Hey Lisa, if I remember nothing else today, I'll remember about the gatekeeper at the door of my mind. I really think that's something that sticks with you. What is the bouncer at the bouncer at the gate? That's fantastic. Yeah, that's really cool. So
Marguerite Lewis. That's who said that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So let's give another applause for Reverend Lisa. Good for a good. Reverend Lisa is always saying, eat dessert first. I'm going to eat dessert first by saying that, first of all, gratitude, as you just heard, is a really important thing. So the center is really grateful for 3 people who came out yesterday and worked in the yard there and did a great job. And that was Melody Tipton, Mark Cornelison, and Mary Redspinner. Which is cool. Evolving Design begins next week, and Reverend Lisa will open it, and then Reverend Jesse will continue it. And just a reminder that, you know, we do have prayer supports, and we do encourage you to use our prayer support. Reverend Lisa mentioned practitioners today. We have practitioners who are here and ready and willing to help you. I don't believe there's anybody in our whole congregation who does not have something that they could use a practitioner to pray for. So please use the practitioners in the room at the end and also online. So it is kind of...
Online it's Zoom now, so you can see it.
Yeah, online you've got the choice actually. You know, it is a Zoom link and you can actually see the practitioner. If you don't want to be seen, you can get your video off. And if you do want to be seen, just turn your video on. And it's a really fantastic service. Our practitioners have been through lots of training. They went through 2 years solid training and 2 years of lessons before that. So they're here and ready and willing to help you. So as we come up to giving time, and our usher makes his way to the back there, just say with me, take your gift either in your mind or if you're in the room physically in your hand, and just say with me, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is. And some more.
Now, I invite everyone to just remember with me that there is one life, one love, one divine guidance and wisdom, one heartbeat, one miracle that is life itself. That life is you, that life is me, that life is everyone and everything that we come into contact with. And it is divine, and it is beautiful, and it guides us, and it molds us. It is that guiding light, that force that gives us this and something better. And it is for that and for this life and for this moment that we are forever grateful. I am grateful for each and every one of you. I am grateful for the inspiration that we received from Reverend Lisa today. I am grateful for the joy in the music. I am grateful in the joy in each and every one of your faces. I am grateful for everyone online, everyone who makes this possible. And I am grateful because gratitude feels so very good. I am knowing that it is in this love and gratitude that we exit this service today, knowing that everything we say and do brings a positive, wonderful, magnetic force into the world. And I release this knowledge and this thought and this feeling, knowing it is done and it is good. And so it is.
Say it with me now. Something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use it.
And I love it.
And I love it.
And so it is.